Welcome to our Beyond 20 campaign, a celebration of One Joshua Group's 20 years of service excellence. This is a One Joshua Group production, providing access to information and experts to help improve quality of life and health outcomes.
So artificial intelligence is continuing to make headlines, and we're doing all kinds of improvements in many sectors and industries. And we have with us today Dr. Kevin B. Sneed, who is Dean and Professor of the College of Pharmacy at University of South Florida's Health Tunasia College of Pharmacy. Hello, Dr. Sneed. How are you?
Hey, my good friend. It's always good to see you. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Good. So we are interested in talking about artificial intelligence and somewhat why in health we may be lagging behind some of the other industries. Tell us, if you would, just give us a definition of artificial intelligence and its relationship in healthcare.
Well, overall, artificial intelligence really, some other components could be what we call machine
Machine
learning.
learning.
It's where there are algorithms where we take large amounts of data, a computer and servers will take large amounts of data, and they will continue to build upon themselves and to achieve the correct outcome of knowledge. And so essentially through machine learning, the more data inputs we have into that particular server, the more that machine or that computer learns. And then when it encounters certain experiences or situations, we now have the capability of having the machine provide an outcome that is correct, that really does kind of mimic what we probably would have chosen, but it will do it more efficiently and probably even quicker than we're capable of doing it. And so now we call that artificial intelligence, or sometimes I call it IA, intelligence augmentation. I don't think it will all the way displace what we do anytime soon, but it certainly has the ability to augment with just an endless amount of information.
So, Dr. Sneed, I think that intelligence augmentation really adds back into the personal component of how we're using that. And certainly that approach, and we thank you for sharing that with us, helps to eliminate some of the concerns that people have about using artificial intelligence, or as you call it, intelligence augmentation. Now, what we read and what we learn says that the healthcare sector may be somewhat behind in using this intelligence augmentation. What do you say about that?
I definitely think we're behind other portions of industry right now. It takes an enormous amount of computing power. It takes an enormous amount of investment. But the main thing really is adoption. If you think about how long it takes to train even a single physician, a pharmacist, a nurse, and then we put them out into a market to provide care to millions of people, we kind of bake in to their DNA who they become as clinicians. And so when we come along with things like AI and other technologies, it's very difficult for them to change and adopt these new technologies to get more advanced in how they approach doing healthcare. And then ultimately, somebody has to pay for that. And so, we can't just automatically pass the cost on to a consumer the way you would do in banking or other industries. So I do believe that healthcare AI and healthcare technology is lagging behind, but we're finding ways, very creative ways to shorten that gap and really hopefully move it to the forefront fairly soon.
So, do we have a ready workforce in the healthcare industry to be able to implement these innovations in intelligence augmentation?
I think we have two groups. We have an early adopter group and then an intermediate adopter group. And so that probably will comprise about 18 to 20% of everybody out there that's in healthcare. Then the next 30% of people after that, really, what the industry has done is try to make it very user friendly, where you really don't have to think too much about how to change, where you don't have to think too much about how to alter your workflow to be able to adopt all of the technologies that are coming out there. And now we're getting at that 40 to 50% mark where all of the technology is going to be so user friendly and in the background of what you do that we're kind of at a point where many more people will begin to adopt it, but the early adopter group really is where we are residing most at right now.
So, Dr. Sneed, let's talk about artificial intelligence or intelligence augmentation and move it into a space that we became more familiar with during the pandemic, and that's digital health. What kind of innovations are going to become the standard now in artificial intelligence and digital health from a consumer perspective?
Yeah, well, I think most of everything that's happened since the pandemic has been driven by the consumer, to be perfectly honest, if you really think about it. Of course, telehealth became very prevalent during the pandemic. We were in many ways in lockdown, shut down. We had very limited mobility, but people still needed health care. And for many people that wound up becoming ill, whether it was because of SARS-CoV-2 or otherwise, they needed to get to a provider. And so we were able to stand up telehealth in a very short amount of time, even though that technology had been around for about the previous 5 to 7 years. I think the biggest change we're going to wind up seeing coming out of the pandemic is going to be in remote patient monitoring. We're going to be able to have what we call hospital at home. There are many companies that are getting involved in it. Again, it's the things I'm personally getting involved in right now to try and shift and alter how we collect data in people's in their normal place of residence without them having to get up and leave work or leave their home and collect the very same information. And so the devices required and the platform required, probably even more importantly, are things that we need to work harder to put into the hands of our patients in communities and make sure that we put it in all communities, not just a few communities. But coming out of the pandemic, I think remote patient monitoring over the next 5 years will be the biggest change.
So Dr. Kevin Sneed, who is the Senior Vice President at the University of South Florida's Health, and he's Dean of the Tunasia College of Pharmacy. Now, Dr. Sneed, you mentioned an area, and we're going to come back to something else that you shared with us, this remote connected patient care that you talked about. What can we look for in changes and innovation so that we've moved post-pandemic to greater involvement of the patient in utilizing this artificial intelligence and this machine learning and also the remote patient monitoring?
Yeah, so especially in the areas of chronic disease, meaning people that have high blood pressure, people that may have things like diabetes or elevations in glucose levels and a whole host of other things. We're going to be able to monitor those patients in their home place and in their workplace and be able to send that information in to a physician. Where the AI is going to come in is the platform that's going to capture that information. So, for example, if you have a physician that has 500 diabetic patients, we have continuous glucose monitors that can transmit that information even through their phone. But the physician has no capability of reviewing 500 people all day, every day. And so now you have artificial intelligence in the background, you have AI in the background to be able to decipher that information when it's coming in and then provide notification back to providers or an entire healthcare team when we begin to identify the 15 or 20% of the patients who are not doing well. And that way, once you are monitoring all those people in real time, we have the capability of honing in on people that may need immediate help, people that may need dietary help, they may need social work help, they may need pharmacy help. We can begin to parse out much of their need to the people who can solve their problem the quickest. And if it's dire enough, the physician can be notified, and then we can actually interact with that patient more meaningful before they become before they have a big problem requiring them to go to the hospital. And so the combination of remote patient monitoring, the platform, the patient's ability to decipher their own information, transmit it to AI, and then have a team of people ready to help out is really going to be one of the biggest transitions around AI and remote patient monitoring.
And I think you said what's really going to make this work, and that is the patient being able to utilize the information in a way to communicate with their provider and understand what that means. What can we do to better educate? And I want to say consumer rather than patient, because we kind of
Yes.
want them to not, we want to get to them before they become the patient and be able to address them as a consumer. How can we improve the education of the consumer? Although some people, I don't have one, some people have wearable devices. How can we improve education for the consumers so that they're more comfortable with that data that they're generating to help them monitor, maintain, and possibly prevent the diseases going forward?
I think you're asking one of the most important questions, something I've lectured about for the past 6 months here. Making sure, number one, that the patient has access to this technology is one of the most important things. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But then number two, we have to make sure that the consumer is really aware and has access to all of their information. They understand the outcomes and they understand what we're trying to prevent from happening, and that we're providing tools for them to be able to see everything that they previously had not been able to decipher on their own. And then, most importantly, I think it will be the responsibility of whoever the payer is or whoever is has the attributable component for care that's responsible for the care of that individual to be able to make sure that they are providing access to devices. So, for example, if you have an insurance company, we're not paying. We have to. I'm telling them you're not paying to give the patient, or in your case, the consumer, a device. You're paying for the data that will help prevent something bad from happening that may lead to additional cost with them going to the emergency room or just having a stroke, a heart attack, or other complications. And so I think when you combine all of that together, the consumer is really going to be one of the most important components of how we articulate what we're trying to achieve, what we're not doing in terms of stealing their information or cybersecurity issues that very often I get questions about, but ultimately trying to make sure that they can live the fullest life that they are capable of living by keeping them healthier and identifying things quicker than we've been capable of doing without the technology.
Dr. Sneed, do you think that digital health and artificial intelligence can possibly facilitate early disease detection?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the amount of information that we're gathering almost on a daily basis right now, to be perfectly honest, when we look at AI and we begin to learn better about what are the components of early problem, we're getting to the point now through AI, we can listen to your voice through your phone, through the speaker in your phone, and determine you may have COVID or not. We are beginning to determine if there might be an early detection for diabetes or not. Having eye exams with the mobile phone to be able to determine if there are different changes that are indicative of chronic disease states. So there's an entire host of areas where AI and technology is going to be able to detect things long before we have been capable, long before the patient even felt anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can intervene quicker and thereby helping the patient live a fuller, healthier life.
Yeah, that's exciting. I used to, when I finally got a phone with the quality of camera, I always wondered, so why do I have to go to the ophthalmologist? Why do I really, and I just use this as an example, I've got this camera, can he just, but then, so we're looking at that kind of advancement in technology and the intersection of technology and artificial intelligence. Now, there is a question that consumers and patients and, we go kicking and streaming about people getting my data. I don't want to give people, we went through this with Social Security numbers. We went through this with optical acknowledgement so that your passwords become absolute. I welcome that. So, we can look at some of those things that really are secure. We think that they breach our security, but they actually make it a lot more secure. What are some of the innovations in security for digital health data and telehealth services?
Well, biometric identification is one of the most important things that's beginning to unfold. I mean, being able to have an eye scan, facial recognition, being able to use thumbprints. I mean, different things that we have about our voice, the patterns in our voice, even accepting the changes in our voice over time. Again, AI is capable of using it for identification in a way that we had not even imagined 5 years ago. One big area that we're working on here in our college is around blockchain. Mr. Payne, I can tell you one of the number one questions I get: how is my health going to be secure? And I talk to groups of people all the time, and I say, raise your hand if you can get to your banking information on your phone. And everybody raises their hand, but I point out to them that most people value their money more than they value their health.
Right.
And so if you have security about getting your banking information on that device, then we can kind of corral much of that very similar technology and put it into a health environment that can provide the very same level of protection around your personal data. And then the third thing, again, I belong to a futurist community around the country. I have a firm belief that pretty soon, even though we suspect everybody has a mobile phone, maybe everybody doesn't have one, but we kind of feel that the mobile phone or the concept of it will typically evolve into just a healthcare device. You won't be able to play Angry Birds and Candy Crush and all the other things. You may not be able to go in and stream and get onto Facebook or TikTok, but what it will be is a healthcare tool that will have a unique identifier that's separate away from your social security number, that's separate away from all the other identifiers in your life, but that's very unique for you to be able to help us monitor some of these healthcare issues and kind of pulls it off of that normal grid that many people are afraid of.
So I want to ask a question that's probably a yes or no answer. Should I be concerned about the security of my healthcare information?
I think we should be concerned about any and all information about us at all times. To be perfectly honest, I mean, right now, I think hospitals and hospital systems, healthcare systems, they spend an enormous amount of money on cybersecurity. But on any given day, I mean, any healthcare system is probably sustaining 20 to 50 million attacks on a daily basis. Not just now, most of that is just ads trying to get into and bots trying to get into a firewall, but you can never assume anything. And so we should always be concerned about it, but we can't be consumed by it, and we can't prevent it from allowing us to move forward and advance health. I think that will be a critical component of what needs to evolve in the healthcare system overall. And as we continue to put more emphasis on patient security, on consumer security, on cybersecurity, we can only strengthen the protections that people are very concerned about to the point where they get very comfortable as they are right now about getting their banking information and being able to send cash out to one another.
So, Dr. Sneed, you are an inspiration to people who hear you give your knowledge and your interest and your commitment to this field. And you are aspirational for people who want to be successful and achieve impactful things like you shared with us earlier. How did you get to be dean and professor of the College of Pharmacy at the University of South Florida? What does one have to do to emulate a successful pathway like that of Dr. Kevin B. Sneed?
Well, first of all, I get that question very often, and if I had to recreate my career of how I wound up where I am today, I wouldn't be able to do it. One of the main things I believe is, number one, being selfless, being service-oriented, being solution-oriented, seeking solutions to problems, and then being a very big thinker about how do you achieve that for somebody else. Very often you can be very narrow-focused and be consumed by a very small thing. But the people who really kind of arrive at a certain point in a career are people who are big thinkers that are looking for big impact, and then they build coalitions of teams around them to be able to achieve it. And you're always looking to help somebody else. And so, The number one thing I tell people, don't let people put you in a box. When people say, Dr. Sneed, you think outside of the box so much, I'm like, well, I was never in the box to begin with. I was never there. Don't be inhibited by your circumstance. Only allow yourself to thrive and build the resources around you and continue to be courageous. That's another big one, Carmen. We need courage
Courage.
to be able to accept failure, to be able to look failure in the face. And if you get knocked down, you get back up and you keep going. And I certainly had a lot of adversity in my life and had people around me to make sure I was able to get back up and keep going. And so I get that question very often. But pick your pathway, be committed to it, be very consistent. Consistency is critical. You have to be very consistent about your good habits. That's probably the most critical thing. You have to get better every single day at something. But after that, don't be selfish.
Mm.
Do everything you do for somebody else, and you'll get the return back. That's more of a spiritual thing than anything else, but I firmly believe in that.
We know you that way as well. So we thank you so very much as you help us celebrate our 20th anniversary and
Wow.
beyond. And One Joshua Group is stated in the first chapter of Joshua about encouragement. So we certainly settle with you on that. And as a matter of what we know about what you do and where your heart is, and that's about community engagement. Tell us how we can be better about allowing community participation and community engagement on addressing the issues around intelligence augmentation.
Well, first of all, coalition building is very critical. You have to get into the community and you have to get on the ground level and build trust. We have a group here I'm the executive director of called We Care. That stands for the Work Group Enhancing Community Advocacy and Research Engagement. And I think the number one thing that we spent a lot of time on doing in the very beginning was just getting in and building trust among people from communities and getting them involved in what we're doing. And the moment you get that and you answer their questions and you address their concerns, you open them up to all the possibilities of what you're offering. And so in our case, we are talking about technology in communities. We're making sure that we're teaching the children about it. Very soon, I'm going to a high school to go in and talk about all of these very futuristic things I'm getting involved in. And it's going to be a very special day for the Great American Teach-In, which will be at another middle school I'm going to. So you have to invest time in people. You have to invest time in loving people in the community and doing what is best for them. You have to invite them to become part of you. But then ultimately, we have to provide a pathway of success for them to garner more of the fruits of all the things you're trying to offer to them, because without trust, they're not going to accept it.
Well, Dr. Sneed, as we celebrate our 20th anniversary and celebrating you, we thank you so very much for participating in this and participating in what we have sought to construct and contribute. What are the final takeaways you'd like to leave with those people who will be viewing this, which is amongst the many podcasts we'll be having during this 20th and beyond anniversary campaign?
But first of all, I just want to say congratulations on 20 years. Right now, I just talked about being consistent. That's the epitome of being very consistent, being very focused. And so congratulations to One Joshua Group and you as well individually. I think I would encourage people to engage in the technological evolution of where we are right now. We're not going to stop it. We need to make sure that we are embracing it. And even around AI, one thing I'm teaching our students and even clinicians out in the community, one day people are afraid of whether or not AI will replace you. And I'm like, no, it will not replace you. AI will replace people who are not using AI and not using technology. And so, we need to embrace it. We need to make sure that if we incorporate it into who we are, we can build in the ethics and the protections that people are concerned about. But without that engagement, then we could wake up one day and not be where we want to be and be somewhere in a bad area of bad people, people with bad intentions. And we don't want that. So encourage everyone to engage in something that's only going to happen whether you engage or not.
Well, we thank you, and thank you for joining us for this discussion with Dr. Kevin B. Sneed, who is Dean and Professor at the College of Pharmacy at the University of South Florida. Dr. Sneed, thank you so very much. I'm sure we'll be seeing you on the road to success as we continue our journey. And for those of you who are joining us, continue to join us for our upcoming podcast as we celebrate our 20th year and beyond. As always, and Dr. Sneed has confirmed that be kind, be compassionate, be selfless, and be thoughtful about other people. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
This edition of Beyond 20 is a Life Beat podcast sponsored by One Joshua Group, your strategic source of engagement to improve life through better health, education, and information. For more information, visit us at theonejoshuagroup.com or follow our work on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter using hashtag OneJGCollabs. One Joshua Group, building capacity, expanding resources, joining what you know with what we've learned.